Episode 12, Keiv, Ukraine, 1986. The Krasnaya Gvozdika International Festival was about to begin, and Wahid's heart pounded with anticipation. This was the moment he had dreamed of since leaving Afghanistan to study music in the Soviet Union. Today, he and his musical ensemble, Guli Cirque Red Flower, would represent their homeland on one of the world's greatest stages. The stadium was massive, designed to hold over 100,000 spectators. Backstage, Wahid Omid preparing for the show, his fellow musicians happily prepared their instruments. Farid Rastigar with his keyboard Immersion Saburi, warming up his voice, Khalid Zaka tuning his bass guitar, Fahim Shamim tuning his guitar, Mahmoud Ilyas practicing solo part, and Farad Faizi preparing his drums. "Are you nervous?" whispered Farid, noticing Wahid's trembling hands. "Terrified," admitted Wahid, with a smile. But also ready, the festival coordinator approached them. 5 minutes, Guli Cirque." The 6 friends formed a circle, arms around each other's shoulders. "For Afghanistan," Wahid said simply. "For Afghanistan," they echoed, their voices blending in harmony. The announcement boomed through the stadium in Russian, in Ukrainian, and finally in English. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, representing Afghanistan, Guli Cirque." As they walked onto the stage, the enormity of the moment struck Wahid. The stadium was a sea of faces, more people than he had ever performed for. The spotlight was blinding, but through its glare, he could see curiosity in the eyes of the audience. Wahid stepped up to the microphone. For a moment, there was absolute silence. Then he began to sing. His voice soared over the stadium, beginning with a political song, Dasta, Dasta, about the youth love for motherland. Behind him, the ensemble created a tapestry of sounds. The music was powerful, overwhelming even to Wahid himself. The acoustics of the stadium amplified their sound in a way their rehearsals never prepared them for. What had been beautiful in practice was now magnificent. As they transitioned to their second piece, a contemporary composition Saburi had written specifically for the festival, something remarkable happened. The audience began to participate, clapping along with the rhythm, some even attempting to sing the chorus despite not knowing the words. When the final notes faded away, there was a moment of silence. Then, like a dam breaking, applause erupted. The audience rose to their feet, their applause thundering through the stadium. Some threw flowers onto the stage. Others shouted, "Bravo!" in various languages. As they exited the stage, they were immediately surrounded by journalists with cameras and microphones, all eager to interview the surprise sensation of the festival. "How does it feel to represent Afghanistan through music during these troubled times?" asked one journalist in heavily accented English. "Music speaks when words fail," Wahid replied, his eyes shining with emotion. "Today, I believe the true heart of Afghanistan was heard. For one glorious day, they weren't students or foreigners. They were ambassadors of melody, representatives of a rich cultural tradition that deserved to be celebrated." The days following the festival were a whirlwind of activity. The success of Guli Cirque had not gone unnoticed. They were invited to perform at several smaller venues around Kyiv. Their photographs appeared in local newspapers, and Wahid even gave an interview on Ukrainian radio. But amid the excitement, a bittersweet reality loomed. The festival had always been meant as a culmination of their time together. Farid, Immersion, Khaled, Fahim, Mahmoud, and Farhad were scheduled to return to Afghanistan, where they were expected to contribute to their homeland's cultural institutions. Only Wahid would remain in Kyiv to complete his final year at the music academy. On their last evening together, the 6 friends gathered in their shared apartment. The room was filled with the aroma of Afghan cuisine they had prepared, a taste of home in a foreign land. Their instruments lay silent in their cases, but their hearts were full of unsung melodies. "I never thought I would say this," Farid confessed, as they sat cross-legged on the floor, sharing food from a communal plate as was traditional in their homeland. But I will miss Keiv. Not as much as Keiv will miss your keyboard playing, Wahid teased, but his voice cracked slightly. We have done something important here, Amir Jan spoke softly. We have shown that Afghanistan is not just a place of war, but a land of culture and beauty. They stayed up late into the night, reminiscing about their journey. From their first awkward rehearsals to the triumph of the festival, they spoke of their dreams for music in Afghanistan, of establishing schools and conservatories where the next generation could learn to preserve their cultural heritage. Morning came too quickly, and with it, the inevitable moment of farewell. At the airport, they embraced one by one, promising to write letters and to reunite when Wahid completed his studies. There were tears, unashamed and honest, for in their time together, they had become more than friends. They had become brothers in music. As Wahid watched the plane carrying his friends disappear into the clouds, he felt both loss and purpose. He would honor their shared dream by excelling in his studies, by mastering his craft, by becoming the musician they all believed he could be. Wahid returned to the Keiv Music Academy with renewed purpose. His teachers had heard of his performance at the festival, and he was welcomed back with a mixture of pride and increased expectations. Alla Gabrilovna, his vocal instructor, embraced him warmly upon his return. I always knew you had it in you, she said in her heavily accented Russian. Now the world knows too. But we must work even harder now. And work they did. With his friends gone, Wahid threw himself into his studies with unprecedented dedication. The rigorous schedule helped fill the void left by his friend's departure, and he found comfort in the structured routine of academic life. But beyond the academy walls, Keiv was a city in recovery. Just months earlier, the Chernobyl disaster had shaken the region to its core. Though the immediate panic had subsided, the invisible threat of radiation lingered in everyone's consciousness. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling practice session, Wahid decided to visit the Keiv Cultural Center, where he had regularly performed with the local orchestra before his trip to Afghanistan. The familiar building with its neoclassical facade had been a second home to him. As he approached the rehearsal room, he heard strains of a Tchaikovsky symphony filtering through the doors. The sound was beautiful, but somehow incomplete. He pushed the door open gently and stepped inside. The musicians paused mid-note when they saw him. Then, breaking protocol, they began to applaud. The conductor, a stern man who rarely showed emotion, nodded in acknowledgement of Wahid's festival success. Welcome back, Wahid, he said simply, but the warmth in his voice spoke volumes. As the musicians gathered around him, exchanging greetings and congratulations, Wahid noticed an empty chair in the vocal section. It had belonged to Svetlana, a talented Ukrainian soprano, with whom he had performed numerous duets. Where is Svetlana? He asked, looking around for her familiar warm smile. A heavy silence fell over the group. The conductor placed a hand on Wahid's shoulder, his expression grave. I'm sorry, Wahid. Svetlana was in Pripyat when the reactor failed, the radiation. She fell ill shortly after and passed away 2 weeks ago. The news hit Wahid like a physical blow. Svetlana had been not just a colleague, but a friend, someone who had helped him navigate the cultural differences when he first arrived in Keiv. She had been the first to invite him to her family's home for a traditional Ukrainian meal, the first to insist that he teach her an Afghan folk song, which they later performed together. I didn't know, he whispered, grief constricting his throat. I was in Afghanistan. I didn't know. The other musicians shared their memories of Svetlana, painting a portrait of a life well lived, but cut tragically short. In her honor, they decided to perform a piece she had loved, a Ukrainian folk song arranged for orchestra and voice. Wahid was asked to sing the solo part, a request he accepted with both honor and trepidation. As he sang the hauntingly beautiful melody, Wahid poured his grief into every note. Music had always been his way of processing emotion, of making sense of a world that often seemed senseless. In the following weeks, Wahid rejoined the Cultural Center Orchestra, filling the void left by Svetlana alongside the two remaining vocalists. Together, they began to rebuild their program, incorporating new pieces while honoring traditional ones. The music provided a sense of normalcy for both the performers and their audience, a reminder that beauty could still exist in a world shadowed by invisible threats. Autumn painted Keiv in hues of gold and amber as life at the academy settled into a rhythm of classes, rehearsals, and performances. Wahid's letters from his friends in Afghanistan brought news of their musical endeavors back home. Though reading between the lines, he could sense the challenges they faced in a country still gripped by conflict. One crisp October morning, Wahid was summoned to the Academy Director's office. Such summons were rare and usually reserved for serious matters. He mentally reviewed his recent performances, finding no obvious reason for disciplinary action. Nevertheless, he approached the director's door with trepidation. Inside, he found not only the director, but also Alla Gabrilovna and a well-dressed man whom Wahid recognized as a cultural representative from the Afghan embassy in Moscow. Wahid Nazand, the director began formally. "I believe you are acquainted with Comrade Nazarov from your embassy." The embassy official nodded in greeting. "Your performance at the Krasnaya Gvozdika festival has not gone unnoticed," he said in Dari, a gesture that surprised Wahid. In fact, it has reached the ears of important officials in Moscow. The embassy official outlined an unexpected opportunity. The Afghan embassy in Moscow was organizing cultural events throughout the Soviet capital to strengthen ties between the nations. They wanted Wahid to perform at these events, representing Afghanistan through his music. The irony was not lost on Wahid. The same embassy that had initially discouraged his pursuit of music, emphasizing agriculture and technical fields for Afghanistan's development, was now asking him to be a cultural ambassador, precisely because of his musical talents. "We would be honored if you would consider this request," the official concluded. "The embassy will arrange all necessary travel and accommodations in Moscow." There was a moment of silence as Wahid processed the proposal. He looked to his teachers, seeking guidance. "This is an exceptional opportunity," the director said carefully. "However, you are in your final year of studies. Such a commitment would require careful planning to ensure your academic requirements are not compromised." Alla Gabrilovna, ever his advocate, spoke up. "Perhaps a compromise can be reached. Wahid could organize a small ensemble from our academy students to accompany him. It could serve as a practical component of his final year assessment." The proposal was met with approval. Wahid's love for his homeland remained unwavering, despite the complicated political realities. If music could serve as a bridge of understanding, he would gladly be its architect. In the weeks that followed, Wahid assembled a small but talented ensemble from among his fellow students. They rehearsed diligently, preparing a program that showcased both traditional Afghan music and original compositions that blended Afghan melodies with classical European harmonies. A musical representation of Wahid's own multicultural journey. The journey to Moscow was a 7-hour train ride through the Soviet countryside, a landscape transformed by early winter frosts. The Afghan embassy had arranged for the ensemble to stay at a respectable hotel near the center of the capital, a courtesy that impressed upon Wahid the seriousness with which they were taking these cultural events. Their first performance was scheduled at Moscow State University, one of the most prestigious educational institutions in the Soviet Union. The grand concert hall, with its ornate architecture and perfect acoustics, was both intimidating and inspiring. As Wahid and his ensemble prepared backstage, he could hear the murmur of the audience: students, faculty, diplomats, and embassy staff. filling the hall to capacity. Peering through the curtains, Wahid's heart skipped a beat when he saw the front row. Seated there were the very officials from the Afghan embassy, who years ago had questioned the value of his pursuit of music as a career. Now they sat waiting to hear him sing, to witness the fruition of the very path they had discouraged. The program began with traditional Afghan pieces, the familiar rhythms and melodies immediately capturing the audience's attention. Wahid sang in Dari, his native language, the words flowing like a river connecting him to his distant homeland. When he to bridge the cultural gap. Throughout the performance, Wahid observed the embassy officials in the front row. Their initial stoic expressions gradually softened, giving way to genuine interest and, by the final numbers, visible enjoyment. The applause that followed was thunderous, the audience rising to their feet in appreciation. Backstage, the embassy officials approached Wahid, their previous reservations seemingly forgotten. They embraced him warmly, congratulating him on the successful performance. "Today, you have proven that music is not just entertainment," the lead official admitted, his hand resting on Wahid's shoulder. "It is a powerful ambassador for our nation. Perhaps we have been too focused on building Afghanistan's body and not enough on nurturing its soul." The acknowledgement, though long overdue, filled Wahid with a sense of accomplishment that transcended the applause of the audience. In that moment, he felt that he had not only represented his country, but had also helped to expand its vision of itself. The Moscow tour continued with performances at other prestigious venues. Each concert drew larger crowds than the last as word spread of the unique musical experience. Cultural critics wrote glowing reviews, praising the innovative fusion of traditions and the emotional depth of the performances. For Wahid, the most memorable moment came during their final concert in Moscow. The hall was filled with an international audience, including Afghan students studying in Moscow. After the concert, these students approached Wahid, expressing their gratitude for reminding them of home and for showing the Soviet audience a side of Afghanistan rarely seen in news reports. As the Moscow tour came to an end, Wahid reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. From a boy singing in the streets of Kabul to a cultural ambassador, performing in the capital of the Soviet Union, it was a path as unexpected as it was rewarding. The success of the Moscow performances reverberated beyond the concert halls. When Wahid returned to Keiv to resume his studies, he found that his name had spread throughout the Soviet Union's cultural circles. In early 1987, Wahid received perhaps the most significant recognition, yet an invitation to perform on Utriniy Pochta, Morning Post, one of the Soviet Union's most prestigious television programs. Broadcast to millions across the vast territory of the USSR, it was a platform typically reserved for established artists. The day of the recording, Wahid arrived at the Moscow television studios, feeling a mixture of nervousness and calm. He had chosen to perform a piece that represented his unique musical identity, an original composition that began with traditional Afghan vocal techniques before seamlessly transitioning into a more contemporary arrangement. The television performance was seen by viewers across all 15 Soviet republics. Letters and telegrams poured into the Keiv Music Academy from all corners of the Union, from Uzbeks who recognized elements of their own musical traditions. In Wahid's performance, from Russians who were moved by his interpretation of cultural fusion, from curious listeners who simply wanted to know more about Afghan music. But for Wahid, the most meaningful response came in a letter from his father in Kabul. Written in shaky handwriting, it simply stated, "I saw you on a neighbor's television. You have made Afghanistan sing to the world. I am proud." These words from a man who had reluctantly allowed his son to pursue a musician's life were worth more than all the critical acclaim and public recognition combined. Upon returning to Keiv, Wahid immersed himself once again in his studies. The final year at the academy was the most demanding, requiring not only technical proficiency, but also artistic maturity. As graduation approached, each student was expected to prepare a comprehensive final examination performance. Most students opted for traditional recitals, accompanied by a pianist or small chamber ensemble, from within the academy. Wahid, true to his nature, had a different vision. During his time in Kiev, he had formed connections with many local musicians, including members of a popular band called Mirage, known for their innovative approach to music. Blending rock elements with traditional Ukrainian folk influences, Mirage had developed a substantial following throughout the region. In a bold move, Wahid approached the band about collaborating for his final examination performance. The proposition was unusual. Academy examinations typically adhered to classical formats, but the band's manager saw potential in the idea, not just as an academic exercise, but as a genuine cultural event. The collaboration between Wahid and Mirage evolved into something far bigger than a typical academy examination. The band's manager proposed organizing the event as a proper concert at one of Kiev's premier venues. Tickets would be sold to the public, with the examination jury having reserved seats in the audience. Together with Mirage, Wahid crafted a 2-hour program that would take the audience on a musical journey across continents and traditions. Original compositions were interspersed with innovative arrangements of Afghan folk songs, Soviet pop hits, and Western pieces that had influenced both Wahid and the band members. News of the upcoming concert spread rapidly through Keiv. To everyone's surprise, tickets sold out within days. The unexpected demand led to the unprecedented decision to schedule a second performance on the same day, an afternoon show for the academic jury and general public, followed by an evening encore for those who couldn't secure tickets to the first event. The morning of the performance dawned bright and clear, a good omen according to Afghan tradition. The venue was a historic concert hall infused with the modal qualities of Central Asian music. Throughout it all, Wahid's voice served as the unifying element, adapting to each style while maintaining its distinctive character. The audience response was unlike anything Wahid had experienced before. After each piece, the applause grew longer and more enthusiastic, building to a standing ovation at the intermission. Even the typically stoic examination jury seemed moved, their usual clinical assessment giving way to genuine appreciation of the artistry on display. The second show, performed that evening to another packed house, was even more electric than the first. Freed from the pressure of academic evaluation, Wahid and Mirage allowed themselves to experiment further, taking musical risks that resulted in moments of transcendent beauty. By the final encore, the boundary between performers and audience had all but dissolved, with the entire hall singing along to a multilingual anthem of unity that Wahid had composed specifically for the occasion. The critical response to the concerts was overwhelming. Kiev's cultural publications praised the innovative approach to cross-cultural music making, with one reviewer declaring it a glimpse into the future of global musical exchange. For Wahid, however, the most meaningful reaction came from his vocal teacher, Alla Gabrilovna, who embraced him backstage with tears in her eyes, whispering simply, "You have found your voice." In the days that followed, Wahid rode a wave of post-performance euphoria. He awaited his final assessment with confidence, certain that he had not only met, but exceeded the academic requirements for graduation. The future seemed filled with possibilities, perhaps a professional recording contract, concert tours throughout the Soviet Union, or even a return to Afghanistan to establish a music school. But fate had other plans. 1 week after the triumphant performances, Wahid was summoned to the Academy Director's office. The formal tone of the summons gave him pause, but he attributed it to the official nature of final examination results. When he arrived, he found not only the director, but also Alla Gabrilovna, whose expression immediately told him that something was wrong. "Wahid," the director began, his voice heavy with reluctance. "I'm afraid I have difficult news." What followed was a statement that would change the course of Wahid's life. Instructions had been received from both Afghan authorities and Soviet party officials regarding Afghan students graduating that year. Instead of receiving their diplomas and pursuing their chosen careers, they were being redirected to the Lviv Military Political School for additional education, a thinly veiled euphemism for ideological training. "Your diploma and passport will be held until you complete this additional requirement," the director concluded, unable to meet Wahid's eyes. The shock of this announcement hit Wahid like a physical blow. After years of dedicated study, after proving himself on national and international stages, after building bridges between cultures through his music, to have his future suddenly diverted by political machinations seemed like a cruel joke. "This cannot be," he whispered, looking to Alla Gabrilovna for confirmation or denial. The tears in her eyes provided the answer he feared. In that moment, standing in the director's office with his dreams suddenly in jeopardy, Wahid felt as though he had been sentenced to a kind of death, not of the body, but of the spirit. The music that had sustained him, that had given meaning to his journey, that had connected him to others across cultural divides, now seemed in danger of being silenced. Yet even in this moment of despair, a stubborn resilience flickered within him, the same resilience that had carried him from the streets of Kabul to the concert halls of Keiv, from a boy with a dream to a man with a voice that could move thousands. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Wahid knew that his music would remain his strength, his solace, and ultimately, his salvation.
ای برادران، ای خواهران، ای مادران، میهن از ماست شگوفانی‌ام بر دوش ماست در دست ماست ای میهن ای کشور دوستان، ای برادران، ای خواهران، ای مادران، میهن از ماست شگوفانی‌ام بر دوش ماست در دست ماست ای میهن